what if some of the oldest stories, the ones you think you know inside out, actually have this hidden layer, like a supernatural dimension that kind of changes everything about how you understand the world?
Yeah, like a whole cosmic drama playing out just beneath the surface of human history.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into, well, a really fascinating interpretation of biblical text that unpacks just that. We're talking about rebellious heavenly rulers and ultimately their judgment.
Right.
And this isn't just, ancient history buffs debating obscure points. It's a worldview that seems deeply embedded throughout the Bible. It might even offer you a shortcut to understanding the big narrative from Genesis all the way to Revelation.
It really could.
We're drawing heavily today from an article called The Judgment of the Sons of God by the Sons of God. It does a great job connecting threads from places like Psalm 82, Daniel, the books of Moses, and lots of New Testament writings too.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how this perspective seems to link these parts of the Bible that might feel, well, disconnected sometimes. It provides this coherent backdrop, for understanding the struggle against spiritual forces.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal here is really just to connect those dots for you, maybe reveal a bigger picture you haven't really considered before, a kind of framework for seeing the story with fresh eyes.
Okay, let's dig in. We should probably start at what feels like a surprising origin point for this whole idea. The ancient arrangement of nations after Babel.
Right. Genesis 10 and 11,
Well,
the tower, the scattering.
Yeah. So after that rebellion, the story goes that the Most High divided the nations, set boundaries for them. But here's the really crucial phrase, and you find it in key texts like Deuteronomy 32.8, especially in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint.
Free translation.
He divided them according to the number of the sons of God. Now, the point being made here is that these weren't just like abstract concepts or stone idols.
No,
The text seems to present them as real, powerful, heavenly rulers.
precisely. So Yahweh God specifically allots these powerful heavenly beings to preside over the Gentile nations, the non-Israelite nations.
Okay.
And this was, direct consequence of humanity's rebellion at Babel, like you said, and also their disobedience to that command back in Genesis 9 to fill the earth. They bunched up instead.
Right.
And it creates this stark contrast with Israel because Yahweh keeps Israel as his own special inheritance, his portion.
So you've got this two-tiered system, almost. Israel directly under Yahweh, other nations under these sons of God.
That's the picture being painted, yeah. Nations under these assigned celestial rulers, and Israel uniquely under Yahweh.
Okay, that's a really powerful setup. And we actually get glimpses of this cosmic reality playing out, don't we? Like in Daniel chapter 10.
Oh, absolutely. That's a key passage.
We see figures like Michael, who's called the Prince of Israel.
Right.
And he's in direct conflict with the Prince of the Persian Kingdom. And then later there's mention of the Prince of Greece.
Yeah, and context makes it clear these aren't just human officials.
No, they're unmistakably described as, well, real heavenly rulers who are influencing earthly kingdoms. It's quite explicit.
It is. And think about the Exodus, too. This idea was right there when Yahweh promised back in Exodus 12 to bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt.
Right, I remember that verse.
He wasn't just talking about, smashing idols. These gods, according to this view, were these evil heavenly rulers, the ones actually empowering the Egyptian sorcerers and magicians.
Ah, the ones who replicated some of Moses' signs.
Exactly. We see that in Exodus 7 and 8. They had real power, delegated, you could say, from these beings, not just tricks.
Okay. And Moses himself gives us more insight, right? He says something about these gods not being for Israel.
Yeah, in Deuteronomy 29, he says Yahweh hadn't given these gods to Israel. And then in Deuteronomy 4, he clarifies they were apportioned specifically to the other nations.
Wow.
And it gets even more direct. The psalmist, in places like Psalm 96 in the Septuagint and Psalm 106, actually identifies these rulers being worshipped as demons.
Demons. Okay.
And Moses says the same thing in Deuteronomy 32. Sacrificing to them was sacrificing to demons. Pretty blunt.
It really is a consistent picture across the early books.
And it doesn't stop there. This understanding wasn't just, an Old Testament thing that faded away.
Right, you mentioned the New Testament.
Yeah, the Apostle Paul, think about 2 Corinthians 10, talks about pagan sacrifices being offered to demons, not God.
Yeah.
And John in Revelation 9, same idea.
So it carries through.
It shows how consistently this concept, this idea of powerful, often rebellious heavenly rulers, kind of permeates the whole biblical narrative. It connects things.
Okay, so if these rebellious heavenly rulers were shaping the ancient world, how does this cosmic conflict translate into the New Testament? Paul seems key here.
Absolutely. Paul gives us some really startling insights into the spiritual battle that believers are actually in.
Like in Ephesians.
Exactly, Ephesians 6.
Yeah.
He tells the believers there flat out, your struggle isn't against flesh and blood, not against human beings.
Right, but against...
Against principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Different translations phrase it slightly differently, but the point is clear. It's against heavenly beings.
Operating under Satan's authority, right. He mentions the devil's schemes.
Precisely. Satan's diabolical authority, as Ephesians 6 puts it. It totally reframes what we think of as warfare.
It really does. And Paul uses that phrase elsewhere, doesn't he? Elemental spiritual forces.
Yes. In Galatians 4, he tells the Galatians that before Christ, they were in slavery under the elemental spiritual forces of the world, the Stoicheia.
Stoicheia.
Yeah.
What exactly are those, like basic principles or beings?
Well, that's part of the discussion, but in context here, it seems to refer to these foundational cosmic powers, maybe even the beings associated with them, that held humanity captive. He calls them weak and miserable forces in Galatians 4.
And he says they were trying to re-enslave the Galatians.
Yes, and here's the twist. Ironically, by getting them focused back onto observing aspects of the Mosaic law, like special days and festivals, in a way that missed the point of Christ.
Wow, so twisting something good into a tool of enslavement.
Exactly. It's subtle.
And he warns the Colossians about something similar, right? Deceptive philosophies.
Very similar. Colossians 2, he warns them about fine-sounding arguments and hollow and deceptive philosophy.
And how does he connect that to these forces?
He explicitly links it. He says this philosophy depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces, the stoicheia of this world, rather than on Christ.
Okay, so there's a direct link between false teaching and these cosmic powers.
Yes. And in Colossians, these false teachers were also trying to impose elements of the law, things like food regulations, festivals, and Paul connects that to the worship of angels.
Worship of angels, that seems quite specific.
It is. It suggests these false teachings weren't just human ideas. They were somehow sourced from, or at least aligned with, these spiritual entities, these fallen angelic beings.
And Paul takes it even further in Timothy, doesn't he?
He does. In 1 Timothy 4, he directly links false teachers, particularly those forbidding marriage or certain foods, often associated with ascetic legalism, to deceiving spirits and things taught by demons.
That's quite a direct connection.
It is. And notice the reversal here. It's fascinating. Under the Old Covenant, these wicked rulers often pulled people away from God's law into obvious idolatry.
Right.
But now, in the New Covenant era, one of their main strategies seems to be twisting the law itself, pulling people towards a legalistic observance of it in a way that actually pulls them away from Christ, who fulfilled the law.
So using the law against the gospel, essentially.
In a way, yeah. It's a subtle but incredibly dangerous deception. Paul warns in Galatians 5, if you try to be justified by the law, you're alienated from Christ.
Okay, so these forces are active, they're deceptive. What about Satan himself? The head honcho, so to speak. How much authority does he actually have?
Well, think about the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Luke 4 tells us Satan shows Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and says,
I will give you all their authority and splendor. It has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to.
Exactly. He makes this audacious claim to have received authority over the nations.
Did he actually have it, or was he bluffing?
That's a great question. The text doesn't explicitly refute his claim at that moment. And the author of Hebrews adds another layer in Hebrews 2, saying Satan held the power of death.
The power of death. That sounds significant.
It does. And Jesus himself doesn't seem to totally dismiss Satan's influence. He calls him the prince of this world multiple times in John's gospel.
Right, John 12, 14, 16.
And remember when the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting out demons by Beelzebul? Jesus corrects their conclusion, but acknowledges Beelzebul as the prince of demons in Matthew 12.
Okay. And Paul piles on too, right?
Oh yeah, Paul calls him the god of this age in 2 Corinthians 4, blinding unbelievers, and the ruler of the kingdom of the air in Ephesians 2, the spirit at work in the disobedient.
So he clearly acknowledges Satan has authority over, well, a lot of other rulers and powers. Ephesians 1 mentions Christ being raised far above all that.
Exactly. Paul lists rule and authority, power and dominion in Ephesians 1, implying a hierarchy that Satan presided over in rebellion.
Okay. But here's where, the story takes this incredible turn, right? Because despite all this apparent influence, this control over the whole world, as 1 John 5 puts it.
Yes.
His authority was actually coming to an end. John 12:31, Jesus says, "Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out."
Boom. Yes, that's the pivotal moment. That's the absolute core
Yeah.
of the gospel message in this cosmic context.
So what happened? How was he driven out?
Through Jesus' death and resurrection, that authority over the nations, the authority Satan bragged about, it was decisively stripped from him and given by the Father to Jesus.
All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Matthew 28.
That's the one. Jesus didn't just, survive the cross. He conquered. He fulfilled that ancient promise back in Genesis 3 about crushing the serpent's head.
And Colossians 2 puts it so powerfully.
Stunning. Colossians 2.15. God disarmed the powers and authorities. He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. He disarmed those rebellious rulers.
Wow. Public spectacle. Disarmed. That's total defeat.
Total defeat. And think about what else happened. Jesus broke our enslavement to those elemental spiritual forces Paul talked about. Colossians 2 says we died with Christ to those forces.
And he took the power of death.
Yes. Hebrews 2 says through death he destroyed him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and freed those held in slavery by their fear of death. Revelation 1 shows Jesus holding the keys of death and Hades.
So Satan, by orchestrating Jesus' death,
Actually triggered his own downfall. He didn't understand God's hidden wisdom, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 2. He was outsmarted. He sealed his own fate. It's the ultimate cosmic irony.
incredible. And the result is this completely new cosmic order.
Radically new. The Father gives Jesus the name above every name, Philippians 2 tells us. He seats him at his right hand, Ephesians 1.
Elevated, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion.
Yes. Everything. Everything, including all those rebellious heavenly authorities. Definitively put under Jesus' feet. Ephesians 1 again. All creation, heaven and earth, will ultimately bow to his supreme authority. Philippians 2. It's a complete regime change.
Okay, so this whole deep dive, this picture of rebellious rulers, Satan's limited reign, Jesus' absolute triumph. What does it actually mean for the future? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean for us, now?
Right. It's not just theology. It has massive implications. This whole narrative points to a very clear, very dramatic end for these rebellious sons of God.
But before we get to there, and maybe a quick clarification, you mentioned the sons of God. Are the ones ruling the nations in Psalm 82 the same ones from Genesis 6 who, came down and mingled with humans?
Good question. That's a point of debate, but the source article we're drawing from suggests probably not. The Genesis 6 beings seem to be the ones Peter and Jude talk about, being chained in darkness, awaiting judgment. The Psalm 82 rulers, appointed after Babel, seem to be a distinct group.
So maybe not the original rebels, but they rebelled later.
Exactly. We don't know their exact moral state when they were first appointed at Babel. That's debated. But what is clear is that they went rogue. They ruled unjustly, they accepted worship, they led nations astray, and that rebellion prompted the judgment prophesied in Psalm 82.
Okay, got it. So what is that judgment? What does Psalm 82 say happens to them?
It's startling. God confronts them, judges them for their corruption, and then declares, "You will die like mere mortals. You will fall like every other ruler."
Die like humans, these powerful heavenly beings.
That's the prophecy. And other prophets pick up this theme. Isaiah 24 talks about the Lord punishing the powers in the heavens above and shutting them up in prison to be punished after many days.
Wow. Prison for heavenly beings.
And Isaiah 34 connects the judgment of nations with all the stars in the sky, often interpreted as this starry host of heavenly rulers dissolving or falling. Jeremiah 10 is even more blunt. These gods who did not make the heavens and the earth will perish from the earth and from under the heavens.
So their end is sealed. Annihilation or imprisonment.
The language points towards a decisive end to their rule and existence as powers, perhaps culminating in that final judgment. Daniel 7 might even give us a glimpse of the courtroom scene where the books are opened and judgment is passed before the Ancient of Days.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier there's this pattern, heavenly rulers mirrored on earth.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Think about that heavenly structure. Yahweh is the chief ruler, and then this council, maybe the 70 sons of God, corresponding to the 70 nations listed in Genesis 10.
70. Okay.
Well, that number gets replicated on earth. Moses appoints 70 elders in Israel to help him govern. And then, even more profoundly, Jesus appoints and sends out 70 disciples in Luke 10.
The 70. Right. What was their mission?
To go ahead of him, proclaiming the kingdom's arrival. And what happens when they return? They're amazed. They say, "Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name."
Whoa, so they're already exercising authority over these rebellious forces.
It's like a preview, a sign of the authority shift that's coming in fullness.
And this leads to the most mind-blowing part for us, for believers, right? Our destiny in all this.
Absolutely. It completely reframes our future.
Mhm.
Because in the age to come, who receives authority over the nations?
Revelation 2 says, believers do. To the one who is victorious, I will give authority over the nations.
Exactly. And not just authority, but judgment. Get this. 1 Corinthians 6.3. Paul asked the Corinthians, do you not know that we will judge angels?
We will judge angels, these rebellious heavenly rulers.
That's what he says. It turns everything on its head. We, redeemed humans, God's adopted sons and daughters, are destined to be enthroned and rule, essentially taking the place of those dethroned heavenly sons. Hebrews 2 hints strongly at this. Jesus took on humanity to elevate humanity.
So the very beings who tried to corrupt and destroy God's human family
Will end up judged by that family. They will die like humans, as Psalm 82 says, perhaps judged through the agency of those humans who have been glorified.
Glorified how?
Made like the angels, as Jesus says in Matthew 22, becoming true sons of God who can no longer die, as Luke 20 puts it. We become partakers of the divine nature, Peter says, given glorious immortal bodies. Our destiny isn't just heaven, it's enthronement.
Wow. Okay. This whole deep dive, it's really unveiled this pervasive, consistent biblical worldview that honestly might be entirely new for a lot of people listening. This profound cosmic drama behind everything.
Yeah, and if you step back and look at the big picture, it becomes pretty clear that this interpretation, this understanding of rebellious heavenly rulers, it isn't just some fringe idea. It seems deeply embedded in the theology of the New Testament writers.
It really impacts the gospel message itself, doesn't it? And the mission of the church.
Absolutely. It reframes everything. The gospel isn't just about personal forgiveness. It's about cosmic regime change. The church isn't just a social club. It's an outpost of the coming kingdom.
It paints this picture where the struggle isn't merely human politics or personal failings, but it's truly cosmic. And Jesus' victory wasn't just personal, it reclaimed authority over all things.
Right.
Which leads to this absolutely incredible destiny for you. For the believer, you're part of something so much bigger, so much grander than maybe you ever realized.
And maybe that leaves us with a final question to ponder. You know, considering this ancient understanding of heavenly rulers, this cosmic conflict and the now triumphant authority of Jesus and incredibly his followers, how might that shift your perspective? How might it change how you view the challenges, the struggles, even the spiritual realities you face day to day? What does it really mean for you to be part of a kingdom that is actively, raiding another one, taking back territory?
Yeah. What does it mean to live like someone who will one day judge angels? It's definitely something to think about.